I'm Jesse McQuarters, editor of Step Brand Studio, and today I'm joined by two oncology research leaders from Gilead Sciences and Kite. Jackson Egen is Senior Vice President of Research Oncology at Gilead Sciences, where he leads early-stage discovery efforts, spanning solid tumors and blood cancers. Priti Hegde is Senior Vice President and Global Head of Research at Kite, a Gilead company, and a recognized leader in cancer immunotherapy research and translational science. Jackson, Priti, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be joining you today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so I'll start with you, Jackson. With so much happening across the oncology landscape right now, where do you see the greatest unmet need, and how does that inform Gilead's research priorities?
I think it's really important first to acknowledge the tremendous progress that has been made in cancer treatment and prevention over the past few decades. Patients are living longer, and I think importantly, we now have clear demonstrations of durable, even curative responses that can be achieved with treatment, at least in some settings. Of course, the problem and the challenge is that these examples are too few and far between. There's still a tremendous unmet need. Many cancer patients, particularly those with advanced metastatic disease, still don't have adequate treatment options available to them. So our priorities at Gilead and Kite are driven first and foremost by that unmet medical need, asking ourselves, what are the cancer types? Who are the patients that are underserved by existing treatments? With that North Star of unmet need in mind, we then focus on the disease biology, applying the expertise we have in cancer cell biology and immunology to ask ourselves, what are the key mechanisms or the pathways that are actually underlying unrestrained cancer cell growth or preventing the immune system from making an effective response to cancer? And then if we were to actually develop a successful therapeutic that targets these pathways, what would have the biggest benefit to cancer patients? So finally, we then look to apply the unique drug development expertise that we have at Gilead and Kite and the breadth of therapeutic modalities we have at our disposal, from small molecules to large molecules, antibody drug conjugates to cell therapy, to then develop a therapeutic that is going to have the biggest impact and hopefully transformational impact for cancer patients.
Priti, how does this unmet need that Jackson talked about shape the research and the research questions that your team is focusing on?
At Kite, we've seen what transformative benefit really looks like for patients. And so that's given us a sense for what the molecular and cellular drivers of response are in lymphoma and multiple myeloma. And as Jackson pointed out, we're really interested in exploring how do we then take these learnings from human trials and say, how can we now make that difference for patients in other diseases where the bar for efficacy, unfortunately, is low. And I'll give you an example. Glioblastoma, really devastating disease. Patients who get diagnosed with glioblastoma tend to have very poor 5-year survival outcomes. Less than 5% of patients survive up to 5 years. That's a solid tumor indication or a disease where we're collectively really interested in exploring how do we tackle this disease now that we know what responses should look like for cell therapies from hematologic malignancies, and take those learnings now to more difficult to tackle diseases in solid tumors. We're doing it with cell therapies. Jackson's team has small molecule inhibitors that address certain tumor intrinsic properties in glioblastoma. And then as we sit at the table together, we say, what can that future look like for patients where we can potentially combine these agents together for maximum transformative benefit for patients?
Priti, to get specific, I know you're doing some work around anito-cell research. What does this signal about where Gilead and Kite are headed?
The acquisition of Arcellx really signals the deep commitment that Gilead and Kite have towards cell therapy as a platform. And it's not just based on what we see as its potential today, but truly where the science can lead us. Kite and Arcellx started working together sometime in 2022 on the anito-cell program that is a BCMA-targeted CAR-T that's being developed in multiple myeloma. And through that collaboration and partnership, partnership, we got a really good sense for the potential for their platform. It's essentially a platform that identifies these small synthetic proteins called D domains. And you can imagine these patients with multiple myeloma who've gone through many rounds of therapy. If you can provide them with a therapeutic option that has potential, it really democratizes the access of cell therapies beyond just these niche centers to more patients globally. And that's what we saw as the true benefit of this partnership and this platform with D domains. Arcellx has a really nice repository of D domains that we could leverage for a variety of applications, both within Jackson's organization and Kite Oncology, as well as beyond oncology to other therapeutic areas. So I think what this acquisition signals is that sentiment of deep commitment to cell therapies.
From the Gilead perspective, Kite has really led the way in advancing both in lymphoma and myeloma these truly transformational therapies. I think it's given us at Gilead quite a bit of impetus to continue pushing into that space even more, developing complementary therapeutics beyond cell therapy in the myeloma space and the lymphoma space that, again, could be ultimately part of a regimen of therapeutics that can make an impact.
Well, Jackson and Priti, before we wrap up, how can people stay connected with this fantastic work that you're doing at Gilead and Kite?
Well, for Gilead, I would encourage folks to visit the Oncology page at gilead.com.
And for cell therapy, please visit kitepharma.com. The science is moving quickly, so we'd really love for people to follow along and stay tuned.
Jackson Egen, Senior Vice President of Research Oncology at Gilead Sciences, and Priti Hegde, Senior Vice President and Global Head of Research at Kite. Thank you both so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.